Charge slip, this is if you want to generate a super bill just for this patient only. So if we left click here, you can see it automatically pulls up his name. So all I have to do is click generate and it will pull up a super bill just for him. I'm going to close out. Now, while you can do it individually, really, if you got a lot of patients, that's just going to take too long. So what I like doing instead is going under the reports menu, down to charge slip printing and over to standard charge slip. And in here, instead of doing it patient by patient, I'll choose my charge slip, which is standard, double click on standard, and then for today's date, and then leave everything else blank so it pulls for everybody for today's date. And there you can see up at the top, this is page 1 of 12. That way I don't have to left click on every single one of them and generate it individually. I can use the reports menu. Go back and left click on his name again. We can move the appointment, copy it, or delete it. So if John calls in and says, oh, by the way, I'm being seen this morning, would you see me also tomorrow? We can select copy, and you can see it's in the motion of copying. So we can go to tomorrow, and then just find a time and left click, and it copies it. So there's John Adams. So if I go back to today, the 29th, he's still here as well. And it's the same thing. If I wanted to, let's say, move O'Reilly, left click on O'Reilly, move. He's in the process of moving, and I can say, let's move him to 9 a.m. instead by left clicking. And there we go. Now that we went over the basics of creating an appointment and also making changes by left clicking on the appointment here and choosing the options, next let's cover the buttons up in the upper left hand corner here. Let's say a patient calls in, Arthur Spooner, and he says he's not sure if he's been seen by the doctor before. If you can't remember, just get the first couple letters of the patient's last name and type in SP for Spooner and hit the tab key. And obviously if nothing pulls up, that means we don't have the patient in the systems, so more than likely he hasn't been seen. So we'll click cancel and delete that, and we'll set up a new patient by clicking on the new button. Now the nice thing about this screen is that it's not as big as the patient demographics. In other words, we just want enough information to enter in here so we can quickly schedule him while we're with him on the phone. So we'll type in the patient's last name, Spooner, comma, no spaces, and then just enter in as much information as you need. Especially you're going to need the provider who he's going to see. So we can put in Dr. Rice, R, and hit the tab key. Now his financial class is going to be basically the same as the insurance, so if he has, let's say, Blue Cross Blue Shield, we'll type in the letter B and hit the tab key, and then we'll double click on one. And instead of boring you with all entering in data, I entered it in for us. So now that we got the basics, just go ahead and click Save. If the system defaults require that you enter in the Social Security number, when you save it, it'll say that you can't save it without it. So mine doesn't require it. I'll go ahead and click Save. And boom, he pulls right up at the top here. So all I have to do is come down here and left click on an open time slot and schedule the appointment. So at least we got his basic information. And then once he comes in, we can have him fill out more paperwork and get more information from him. And of course, the next button we covered, if we need to edit or get more information, like we need to change his phone number, we can click on the edit button and it will pull Arthur Spooner up in the patient demographics. Click clear, obviously, to wipe this clean so we can click on a new patient or enter another one in to schedule. Next, the Find button. If we want to find a date that's open for Arthur Spooner to see the doctor, we can do it quickly. In other words, let's say that Arthur Spooner says, look, do you have something open in about 6 weeks on a Tuesday or Thursday morning? Well, instead of going through the calendar over here and clicking on each day or scrolling through it, which could take some time, what we can do is, since we got his name up, we can click on the Find button. The top section changes, of course. What we want to do is we want to skip the start date. We want to go to the set to date. He said in 6 weeks, right? So we'll select this and go down to 6, and then we'll say it's weeks. He said, let's say any time in the morning, so we'll do AM, and he wanted a Tuesday and a Thursday, and he wanted to see Dr. Rice, so come through here and double click on his name, and then the appointment length, you got to have that, so we'll say it's going to be about 45 minutes. Then all we have to do is click on Find Appointment. And you can see before we click on it, it's 6 weeks out from today's date, which means the start date is no longer March 29th, it's now May 10th. So when we click on the Find Appointment button, it's going to go to the earliest day that Dr. Rice has available, and it's not a Tuesday, it's actually a Thursday, and it's going to be May 10th, Thursday, because that's exactly 6 weeks out from today's date, March 29th. Then all I have to do is come down in here, left click to make the appointment, double click on an appointment type, and select, of course, Dr. Rice. And then let's say he wants to be seen earlier. Well, we can put him on the waiting list by checking the box. And it's going to be for Dr. Rice here. And then any comments about the appointment type, and then go ahead and click OK. And then click OK again. So it adds them on that date, and you can see also adds them to our waiting list. So that way if a time opens up earlier than May 10th, then we can go to our waiting list and schedule them earlier. When I'm finished, you want to click on the close button, because if you click on the X here, it's going to close you out of the appointment scheduler completely, unless that's your intention. But click on close. Pulls us back to today's date into the default screen. Next is the appointments button, and that's the history, just as if you would left click, let's see on Heffernan, and want to look at her appointment history. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select her as the patient, so it changes from Arthur Spooner to Carrie, and then I can click on the appointments button here. And then you can see all the appointments that we've had in the past. So far we had to move her appointments 9 times. She's had 7 cancels and 2 no-shows. If there's a lot of appointments, then maybe that's not bad, maybe that's the norm. But if she only had 2 appointments and we moved her 9 times, well then she's probably pretty finicky. But you can see when I'm scrolling through here, I got these plus signs, and you can see the ones in purple are completed. It gives the type of appointment, when it was scheduled, the times it was changed, and you click on the plus sign, it tells me who made it, and it was an established patient. Then we change it to a new patient, and then they finally checked out, and it will be marked complete when you check them out with that little pound sign. So be sure to check them in and check them out so our appointment history looks nice and clean. And then of course if you want to print this on a report, just click on the audit log button. You have your AM and PMs. If you want to look at the morning hours, click on AM. You want to look at the PM. Shifts everybody down to the afternoons here. So I'm going to go back to the AM. Also, you can view the doctor's weekly schedule and monthly schedule. Let's go over to Dr. Rice and click on the weekly here. So that's his week. And then I can click on the month button. And there's his month. Hover over any one of these to get a pop-up for any additional information. And then to go back to the default, click on the day button. Okay, before we skip to the buttons over here and finish off our training, I want to go over this visits box here. Basically what it is it's tied to the referrals tab in the patient demographics, the referrals in other words, and it will display the number of authorized visits unused on the left side of this slash, and on the right side the total number allowed. And this is only updated after the authorized referral charge has been posted. So if you got referral from Dr. Smith, then after you post the charges, then when you come back into the scheduler and you pull up Carrie Heffernan, it'll update here. Okay, checking in, again, we've already covered that. If you want to uncheck a patient who's been checked in, go to that button there. Confirm. Now you no longer need papers to confirm appointments. You can actually do it electronically by clicking on the button here. Now by default, the date is going to be tomorrow's date. So if today is March 29th, 2007, it's going to be the confirmation list for tomorrow. So if I want to confirm appointments either tomorrow or the next day, then I want to change the date. But for the sake of the training here, I'm going to set it back to today's date, which is March 29th. And by the way, there's no refresh button in here. So if you do change the date, be sure to hit the tab key, and then it'll automatically refresh it for you. You can also click on the All button, and in a way that will refresh the screen and pull up today's date, which is March 29th. So again, change the date, hit the tab key, it should bring up that date or refresh it. If you don't tab out of the field here, it's not going to refresh the screen. So for March 29th, I have a list of all the patients that are scheduled or to be seen today, and I also have the option of filtering them by column, like I just want to confirm the appointments for Dr. Jones, Dr. Green's column calendar, Dr. Rice's, or I can just do it by provider profile, which is a list of all the doctors. So you can either do it by doctor or by the name of the column calendar. So for example, if I minimize this, you can see I got the column calendar for Smith, for Jones, and it just so happens that the name of the calendar is also the provider's name. So in this case, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to come back down here and click on the Confirm button so I can bring my confirmation screen back up, and I'm going to start confirming appointments, starting from left to right. First of all, there's the time. Next of all is the patient. You can see I've got some of them I've got home numbers for, some of them I don't. If I need to make any changes, like when I'm calling the patient, so for example, at least for Homer I got his number here, but if I don't have the number for Buck Rogers and I need to find that, maybe I look up at the front and somebody's got their phone number, they forgot to enter it in. Well, if you want to change it here, you can't click in here and change it. You actually have to open up Buck Rogers in the patient demographics to add his phone number or to make any changes, even while you're on the phone. If Buck says, look, this isn't my phone number, I have a new insurance. First of all, if you need to make changes to Buck, just go ahead and double click on his name. You see that little hand that comes up? Usually that means it's a hyperlink. If you click, it actually will link you or take you to another web page. In this case, it's going to take us to the patient demographics, but not by a single click. You actually have to double click. So double click on Buck. It opens up his name in the patient demographics right here. And then, like, let's say I need to add his phone number. So I'll click in here and type in his number. And then when I'm finished, I'll be sure to hit the tab key and then be sure to save my work. And then if it needs to update, to do a family update to his wife, it looks like, go ahead and click OK. And then close out. Now I didn't close out of the confirmation screen, it's still there, but it's minimized down at the bottom. So if I click on the confirm button, it'll bring up my confirmation screen. Now it's not going to update it in this screen here. I'll actually have to close out and then come back in the screen, and then his phone number will be updated here. Even if I click refresh like all, it's still not going to pull up his phone number. Again, I have to close out of the screen and then come back in for his phone number to appear. Or what I can do is I can change the date and just go to another date, like let's say the 28th, double click on it, hit the tab key, pulls me to the 28th, then click on the drop down arrow again and then go back again to today's date, the 29th, double click on it, hit the tab key, and then it updates his phone number right there. Okay, so if you need to make any changes while you're calling, again, double click on the patient's name, pulls you up in the patient demographics. Also, you can double click on the carrier here. When you double click on that, it'll actually take you to the patient demographics on the insurance tabs. And you can see when I hover over one of these carrier codes, it actually gives me the full description of the insurance carrier. So if I double click on Bart Simpson, it'll actually pull me up in Bart Simpson's patient demographics on the insurance tab here. So if over the phone while I'm confirming the appointment, he does say, well, I'm no longer with Blue Cross Blue Shield, I'm actually with Cigna now, you can go ahead and make the changes here. Be sure to save your work, and then when you're done, close back out. Again, it's minimized. Go down to the bottom, click on the confirm button, and it won't update here unless you refresh the screen or close out of the screen and come back in. But at least we were able to change his insurance, the carrier. Now you have a couple of different colors here. If the color of the carrier is in black, what AdvancedMD is trying to say is that they're not set up for e-eligibility. If they're in blue, they are set up for e-eligibility, for checking e-eligibility. And if it's green, actually down below you can see that anything in green means it's canceled. Or if it's in red, it's a no-show. So for right now, Buck Rogers actually canceled.